I've worked for some fantastic people before, Sean, and equally I've worked with very challenging ones. And I guess one would take all of that experience to decide the person they want to be, the manager they want to be. And that's why in all my job descriptions, for example, I advertise in bold that this team values psychological safety net, because I don't feel I've always had that in the past. We win and lose together, that's our motto. And I'd like to think that the team loved the team because of that approach.
The Powering Procurement podcast is brought to you by Atomis, source to contract software designed to save you time and money. Hello and welcome to Powering Procurement, a podcast by Atomis, where we unpack the world of procurement and supply chain management with the help of industry leaders. I'm your host, Sian Lloyd, and this is our resident expert, Gareth Birch.
Hi, after 20 years in procurement, I may be billed as an expert, but believe me, I'm here to learn too.
Each episode, together with our expert guests, we'll dive into specific challenges and opportunities facing the procurement industry today.
And we'll explore easy wins and longer-term strategies to help you rise to the challenge of driving value through your work while showcasing the power of procurement.
So let's get going. Welcome to Powering Procurement. Today we're joined by Harinder Bansal, Head of Procurement and Third-Party Risk Management at Motability Operations. Harinder has led procurement teams across sectors, including retail, pharma and consulting, and now plays a key role in one of the UK's largest fleet operators. Motability Operations supports more than 800,000 disabled customers and is leading efforts to make electric vehicles more accessible. Alongside procurement and risk, Harinder also heads up Motability's Reach network, championing equity and inclusion, and serves as a trustee for STEPS charity worldwide. His work really sits at the intersection of purpose, innovation, and sustainability. And today we'll be exploring how procurement can deliver environmental impact, create social value, and help businesses achieve ambitious net zero goals. It's lovely to meet you, Harinder, and thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Pleasure to be here, Sean.
Well, I'm really looking forward to our conversation over the next half an hour or so. But to begin, it would be great to hear a little bit more about you. Your role, it sounds pretty unique, really, and almost more of a vocation, if I could say, than a career, something that you've certainly made your own. How did you get to this point and come to be in this position?
Where to begin? How long have you got, Sean? On a personal level, I actually studied mechanical engineering. So I used to be a mechanical engineer about 12 years ago. And like many other people, you fall into procurement, don't you? I realised early on it wasn't for me. And I'm very grateful to have started my procurement career at Tesco head office, where there was almost the perfect role for me to make that transition into procurement by buying in mechanical and electrical services and these would be suppliers that would have supported us with new store development, refurbishing existing stores, and so on. And because I knew a little bit about the technicalities of these things and the nuances that involved, it allowed me to transition from a technical into a commercial role and build my career from there, really. So, as you say, I'm very fortunate. I've had a career in different industries, different sizes procurement teams, different maturity of team to get that breadth to help me where I am today.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations on everything you've achieved so far, and really looking forward to hearing about your priorities, certainly in the role that you're in at the moment and everything you've achieved. We've had quite a few conversations over the course of the Powering Procurement podcasts with senior leaders in procurement. And certainly when we're talking about sustainability, sometimes we do get the sense that there has to be a fight sometimes to get sustainability on the agenda. But in terms of the organisation that you're with, I get the sense that sustainability really is a focus. So do you think that has helped you in terms of the way that you then look at procurement and how you approach procurement particularly in your current role there?
Yeah, I agree. And you put it really well, Sean. In the same role in another company, I might be fighting to get this on the table, on the agenda. But it's an opportunity to be part of the journey because the company have really seized it as an opportunity organically. And the reason why they've done that is, and I guess just to set the scene, if the audience isn't aware, Motability, it's a UK only company. It supports over 800,000 disabled customers in the UK. So the way it works is if a disabled person is in receipt of the disability allowance um, from the government, then they can either take that as income or they can trade it in for a car lease, a powered wheelchair, a scooter, or wheelchair accessible vehicle. And the idea behind why this all started 50 odd years ago is to keep disabled people independent and mobile and give them that freedom, essentially. And I guess with that in mind, Sean, that's why I really believe that we're a truly purpose-led business, laser focused on keeping our disabled customers mobile and independent, as I say, but also keeping customer satisfaction high. Um, every disability is unique. Not every disability is physical, and so it's really upon us, really, to be their their biggest supporter in their lives and really make that difference. So I want to set the scene with that. And as you say, we are one of the UK's largest fleet operators. Um, given that we serve over 800,000 customers in the UK, with that comes a significant amount of scale. What we want to do is use that scale for good, and we recognise our duty to protect the planet, um, and hence why we now have a huge focus on ESG, sustainability, and we actually have a dedicated team focused on just that, Sean, just purely focused on impacting sustainability and embedding, I guess, good practice across the business.
It's great to hear that purpose from you, Harinder, and to really set it in the context. But yeah, do carry on, because I think you were going to say about how really that approach then comes to the fore.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in 2025 now. So last year, we became the UK's first B movement builder. So I guess just to set the scene on this, um, B, a B Corp company is one that has been verified by a company called B Lab. And essentially what they do is go in and assess companies to a high standard when it comes to ESG principles. And we made that application last year to walk this journey. And I guess fast forward to mid 2025, we're hoping to, you know, get some outcomes on where we are with our application when it comes to B Corp, because we want to use our scale for good and be recognised in the industry and really set the standard, hopefully for others in the automotive industry to follow. And I guess in procurement, it is refreshing that we haven't had a fight on our hands to kind of get this on the radar, and so we're trying to use the opportunity, the momentum, to really embed ESG and sustainability within our procurement processes, our policies, and make sure that it's at the heart of what we do.
So the B Corp status and application is ongoing at the moment, is it, Harinder, for you? I mean, it's certainly something I've become aware of more. Even seeing on social media, companies in lots of different sectors really shouting about it when they do achieve this status. It's really something that it's not easily attained, is it?
It's not. The bar's very high. They set very high standards, and in theory, actually, not every company can achieve it because of those high standards. So it's something to aspire to. And like anything in life, if you might fail at the first hurdle, it's important to see that progress year on year and keep trying again to achieve those standards. And from working with the impact and sustainability team, B Lab, and there's a climate consultancy we also work with, have been very supportive on this journey, recognizing the good things we do today around the social aspect, the social appeal, if I can call it that, supporting disabled customers, but also the aspirations we have when it comes to environmental practices.
I mean, it's great that we're talking about this today because it no doubt will be inspiring to other people as well. And this podcast is all about sharing experience and knowledge that people can learn from the experience of those who we're chatting with. And when you were talking about sustainability and your approach, and it might be relevant towards the sort of application that you're going for now as well. From what you're saying, it seems sustainability is at the core. Is that something that is thought about at the beginning of decisions as opposed to being something that, might be bolted on at the end, if you like?
Yes, good question. Um, it's an ongoing journey, if I can put it like that. Um, whilst we're doing what we can to embed it within policy, procedures, processes, the proof really is in the pudding on when we've made decisions, the outcomes that we need to see from suppliers. What's different this time? Now that we're talking more about sustainability, and it can be a challenge, given that most companies now, have a huge focus on costs, getting more value for money. There is that dilemma, isn't there, around if something costs 10% more, but it's better for the environment. How do you make a call on that decision, given that you're focusing on costs? And what we can do as a function is get the data to support those decisions and encourage the business to make the right choice that they feel represents overall value for them. But to do that, there's so much groundwork that needs to be covered off first: procedures, policies, practice, talking about it more, making sure it's embedded in things like um, scoring matrices when you're looking at supply selection. So there's a lot of groundwork we can do, and I guess the rest is down to encouragement and sharing where good case studies have actually happened in the business and sharing that to inspire other parts of the business as well.
Yeah, thank you for being so candid on that. It's great to hear that there's work in progress effectively. But you said about sharing experiences and how important that is. Are there any that you could perhaps share with us today? Any particular case studies where really, you've championed that sustainable approach and perhaps even challenging commercial expectations, but you've got there in the end?
Yeah, there is one example that comes to mind in a previous company, which I'm proud of because for me, it does represent what you say, where we have to balance um, commercial expectations and making a good, sustainable decision as well. So at a previous company, we, like many companies, when IT assets, so laptops, mobile phones, screens become end of life, companies need to dispose of them responsibly. Certainly with things like laptops, they've got hard drives, they hold data, they need to be securely wiped. Um, we used to pay a supplier just to collect the waste. They would I guess, data cleanse the hard drives and make sure there's nothing confidential on there. They'll securely wipe the hard drives and then dispose of it wherever it needs to go, landfill, for example. It was a paid service as well. So we paid someone to take this waste away. I saw an opportunity in the market where I propose an alternative method of still meeting a requirement, which is finding what's called an ITAD supplier. So ITAD stands for IT Asset Disposition, and it essentially does the same thing. It's a company that collects the waste, but what's different is it first attempts to refurbish, say for example, a laptop. It attempts to refurbish it first and then try and remarket the IT asset on the open market. So the idea is wherever we can save something and avoid it going to landfill, that's a success. And if it has been able to sell a laptop successfully, say for argument's sake, £100, we had a gain share model and we would share some of that profit. So there's something in it for them, there's something in it for us. A decision was then made in itself. That income that we then generated from that, do we then donate it to charities or fund new laptops for schools? And then you can make a more positive story on the back of that. And I guess just to build on that example further, Sean, if a laptop was beyond economic repair, and sometimes it can be, they would then take a further step to strip it of its components, its precious metals, both of which can then be reharvested and reused for new equipment. But I hope you can see that both approaches try to minimize things going to landfill and support, I guess, the circular economy. So I guess this supplier and most ITAD suppliers nowadays on the market can not only do this, but then they can report on their sustainability performance. So imagine having a set of KPIs from the supplier that says the amount of energy saved by not having to produce new laptops, new equipment, plastic, transport, pollution that's attributed to that, water usage, etc. So that goes way beyond the commercial aspects. It's almost too good of a news story not to be part of and not to share.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to hear that you sharing it with us today. And actually, the laptop that I'm on today is a sort of a saved, refurbished laptop,
No, glad
actually.
to hear it.
So it's great, isn't it, when you feel that you can do something to be part of the circular economy. So definitely something in it for everyone. And I think that was a really good example. Thank you, Harinder. Um, I suppose taking us to next part of the discussion, Scope 3 emissions is something that obviously we're all concerned with, and we've been talking about actually quite a bit on this podcast as well. Certainly managing them, what's come across is that can be a really big challenge, certainly for procurement teams, because so much of the responsibility there lies with suppliers, doesn't it? I'd be interested to see sort of and hear actually just initially, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, isn't it? And certainly for us, we're really at the start of this journey, but we have made some progress. So, for example, we now have on our website a supplier code of conduct, and that incorporates all sorts of things like human rights, our expectations around the expectations we have at a bare minimum for suppliers, but we want to build on that to encompass our expectations for sustainability. Perhaps things like minimum reporting standards. Um, some of the ideas that the procurement team have is things like um, getting new suppliers to sign up to the supplier code of conduct as that evolves at the same time, so they know what it means to do business with Motability. Um, we also have much longer term plans on things like what does sustainability mean in practice when it comes to contracts. So are there sustainability style contract clauses we can include that helps encourage the supplier to make progress in this area? And if they don't, what does that mean for that relationship as a whole? Um, there's all sorts of things that procurement teams can do. And again, some companies will be further than others along this road. And I've always felt it's really important to network as an individual, but also as procurement teams with other companies to inspire each other, to learn from each other, because it's a joint challenge. Um, I think that answers the question.
Yeah,
I can
I
build on
think
that.
absolutely what I'm taking from that is it's just taking people with you as well, isn't it? And learning from other people's experiences there as well, and working out, what works in practice, I suppose.
Yeah, and I also think it's a good opportunity to be creative. So whilst companies might set their own net zero targets, they might set their own scope 1, 2, 3 targets to support that net zero ambition. Um, there's no reason why we can't set scope 3 targets on a supply chain further down the line, and I guess give that transparency to suppliers on what we expect over the next 5, 10 years in terms of progress from them. And then that's when you get into the realms of data. What data can you get hold of? Where can you use data to predict trends and challenges along the way to meet your ambitions?
Great, thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit about Motability's Reach network now then. I certainly don't know much about this, and it'd be great to hear a bit more about it from yourself. Tell us, what is it? What is the network?
Yeah, sure. So REACH stands for Race, Ethnicity and Cultural Heritage, and it's one of 4 employee network groups in Motability. Um, the more common term for, I guess, a network group is ERG, so Employee Resource Groups. So if anyone's heard of ERGs but not a network, they're the same thing. And essentially what it is, Sean, is um, internal employee groups, um, and members within the groups have the opportunity to share experiences, to create a safe space for each other. And I guess for Reach particularly, help raise awareness of various cultural or religious events or occasions that different people might have. Um, so for me, it's really about creating that safe space. And I guess certainly in bigger companies where you've got offices around the world, there might be more people similar to you, whether it's your origin, your religion, um, similar family background in a completely different office around the world. And it brings, I guess, that global challenge, more of a local one where you know exactly who your colleagues are and you're able to share those experiences. We have a slogan in Reach, which is seen, heard, valued. So that's what we try and live up to.
And what's the response been like?
We've got a good sign up actually, and we meet up as a network, generally virtually, once a month for about an hour, and we talk about all sorts of things. So certainly, at the last one, we were talking about Ramadan. So our Muslim colleagues were going through the month of Ramadan, and they actually came to the network meeting to talk about how they celebrate Ramadan, why they celebrate it, um, what they do as a family to celebrate it. I learned something new recently, which is actually if you're Muslim, there are exemptions to do Ramadan, for example, if you're pregnant or if you have a disability or you're not well within yourself. And that's what Reach is about, to learn about what's important to other people when it comes to culture.
Brilliant, thank you. And also in the introduction, I was mentioning about the Steps charity as well. It would be great to hear a bit about that because that's a worldwide organisation, isn't it?
It used to be. It's recently changed to UK only, but it still has longer term worldwide aspirations. Steps charity is a charity very close to my heart. So I joined as a trustee and director of Steps because my youngest daughter was born with a condition called talipes, more commonly known as clubfoot. And clubfoot is one of the many lower limb conditions that the charity supports. So if anyone had a child that was born one of these conditions in the hospital, it's likely that the hospital clinician would have signposted those parents to Steps. And I guess I wanted to give back in a way to a society where I could, because the charity really helped me and my wife when our youngest was born, and I'm really grateful today for the support that they gave us. Um, so it made complete sense for me to join, try and give something back where I could, try and be useful if I can. Um, and recently, I became the chairman of the charity, which comes with some legal responsibilities. So it was a bit daunting at first, but it's one that I take seriously in my spare time, and it's something I'm very proud of. And I guess just to build on the Reach angle slightly, if I may, as a Sikh, one of our key values in our religion is something called seva, and that translates in English to doing something selfless, doing something to contribute to society. So I guess by me taking on this role, it was one of my many ways I could do what we call seva, something that's selfless.
Absolutely. I I feel it's really important to try to give back, and certainly, I try to. Well, I do support a number of charities, and have been an ambassador for a number of charities over the years. Which, like you, I find just very, very rewarding to feel if you can just make some small difference. And there's so many great charities doing really important work now. Sometimes you're filling those gaps, quite frankly, aren't they? In services as well. In terms of if somebody's listening and think, oh, Steps could perhaps help me or somebody I know, how would people link in or find out how they might be able to be supported?
You can reach out to me afterwards. And Steps is one of many charities. If you're also interested in supporting other charities, perhaps ones that are more located closer to home, for example, um, there's a website called Charity Jobs, for example, which regularly advertises volunteers, roles for ambassadors, as you say, Sean, to things like taking on a trusteeship. Um, and I've always felt that it's a good way to I guess, spread your wings, develop new skills, continue your networking beyond your immediate procurement profession, because it certainly helps me in my career so far by learning different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, and it's great to hear about it. Perhaps steps might not be one that people are so aware with about because there are so many different charities, aren't there? So it's brilliant that we've been able to hear a little bit about it today, and wishing you all the very best with your work with that. As chair, it's a big job, isn't it? It does take time, and it's great to see that commitment. I'd be interested, to know really whether the work that involved with there through Reach Network, also with Steps, all adds to who you are, Harinder, and was probably your leadership style as well. I mean, do you think that the other involvements that you have does play into your day to day approach, even in procurement as well?
Um, I would say so, because what it gives me is a bit more confidence than I had before. So I am one of those people where from time to time imposter syndrome might kick in. You might feel that actually I can't do this. Why should I apply? Why would they pick me? But certainly from exposure to Reach, being part of Steps, it's given me a bit more of a growth mindset and a bit more self-belief, Sean. Um, and so I would say to anyone, back yourself. You're probably a lot better than you think. So don't be the only limiter for yourself. Certainly, if I build on um, my chairman experience, I've had to interview ex-CEOs, ex-CFOs, and these are people with a CV probably 20 pages long, 20 years experience on me. So that was very daunting to me. Um, but I learned a lot from that. And I guess what do you get from that? You get a bit more exposure, a bit more resilience, and you learn more about the world. So Steps, that's charity sector, but it's charities commission. I've not had an exposure to that before. Motability, that's financial services, automotive. I've worked in pharma, retail before, and when you diversify your experience in even beyond your career, I think you certainly build a picture on how the world works. It's a massive machine or a spider web, whatever the analogy is, and I guess we're all trying to build that picture and how everything knits together. So certainly for me at Steps and Reach, I get more of that exposure to help me as a manager decide the manager I want to be. I've worked for some fantastic people before, Sean, and equally I've worked with very challenging ones. Um, and I guess one would take all of that experience to decide the person they want to be, the manager they want to be. And that's why in all my job descriptions, for example, I advertise in bold that this team values a psychological safety net because I don't feel I've always had that in the past. We win and lose together. That's our motto. And I'd like to think that the team loved the team because of that approach.
It's really great to hear about that growth mindset as well, and how we do grow, don't we, in so many different ways. Uh, from the people that we meet, the different teams that we're working with, and the different experiences that we get. I mean, I'd be interested to know, what's been your scariest moment, Harinder? Has there been anything that you look back on and now you think, oh my goodness, how did I get through that?
Yeah. What would it
I
be?
put you on the spot, sorry.
Um, yeah, I mean, even if I think of my first job, going joining Tesco into a procurement role, I didn't know anything about procurement. I didn't know anything about business. I'd only ever studied pressure drops in piping and things like that from engineering. Um, but I guess 12, 13 years on, I'm still here because I've been able to adapt and learn along the way, certainly from being in retail first and then joining the pharma industry and later consulting. I've learned that it's important to be adaptable, but I've learned to adapt as well. And it's as the saying goes, Sean, if you surround yourself with like-minded individuals with a similar mindset, people that are willing to help, and be that friendly shoulder if you need to reach out to them, that goes a long way to supporting you.
Yeah, absolutely. It is key, isn't it? And I remember having to admit in an interview very early on in my career that the program I was applying to work on, I actually hadn't ever watched, and that was simply because at the time the TV aerial was turned to a different region. But yeah, you sort of go for it, and I didn't get that job, but actually I did get something else later on. So you never know where paths take you, do you? In terms of, though, I suppose staying in front of the curve for procurement professionals who are going to be listening to this podcast, I mean, have you got any tips in terms of, you know, what they're going to need for the future? I know it's a big question, but people need to prepare now, don't they? What if they need to be able to handle things in the future?
Yeah, I guess step one is recognizing it's important, um, and therefore it's important to kind of embed it where you can within your role, within your function. And then certainly for me, I didn't know everything about sustainability, and I still don't. And so building on that, just to self-reflect on what you do know and what you don't know, and then look to invest in yourself, invest in your team, perhaps with things like sustainability training, to really try and take your knowledge to the next level, so you're then best equipped to support the company. Um, what I've done recently is also network on things like LinkedIn, to certainly meet other people where they're on that journey to me, that journey of progress, that journey of learning more. Maybe people in companies with similar aspirations to us, just so you kind of, further to my other point, surround yourself with those individuals that might be able to help you, and you can help them at some point. Um, I guess the old approach to procurement has always been, right, the key KPIs on savings, for example, and perhaps now that sustainability is really on the agenda for most companies, we should use this as an opportunity to reset and take a step back, because if the direction of travel is sustainability is now important and ESG is key, how do we work back from that to really measure ourselves to support the company on that? Is it sourcing number of suppliers who are local businesses that kind of addresses the social aspect of ESG? These are new metrics that we probably haven't considered before. So we need to move beyond cost savings to meaningful things that stakeholders will care about going forwards.
Yeah, that's a really great insight. And are there any particular trends that you are seeing that are emerging?
Um, Trends. There's certainly more suppliers out there year on year that seem to specialize in providing ESG and sustainability data. So it's certainly becoming more of a busier market. And with that, I would expect ESG and sustainability style standards to evolve as well. And with that, procurement practices and procedures to evolve on the back of that as well. So I can imagine that as a trend. And I guess as the market becomes more busy, naturally you'll probably get more consolidation of mergers, and then the market will probably settle at some point. But this is all around data, Sean. So essentially all of these providers are providing data. So I expect that data quality to improve, the number of data points to be more accessible, to provide things like moving away from static questionnaires, which are outdated the minute they're filled in, to real-time predictive analytics. You know, we're in the era of AI now, so you can easily see AI playing a part in all of this too. Thinking more on a wider scale, certainly in the UK, we've got the ZEV mandate. We've got companies committing to things like their own net zero carbon targets. I expect more of that to be a thing. More companies to adopt science-based targets to really push the needle on that. And I guess the other trend I can think of is, I've never worked in public sector, Sean, but I've often been fascinated between the different practices that private and public sector have when it comes to procurement. And I wonder, when it comes to ESG and sustainability, given the good standards that they have in public sector, would we see convergence over time? And perhaps there might be some sort of, I don't know, mandatory practice within the private sector. So the government seem to be pushing, to say, a sustainability agenda with that regard in the private sector. I don't know. I'm thinking off the top of my head.
That was really interesting. And well, it's been fascinating talking with you and getting to understand a bit more about you, what makes you tick as well, Harinder. Thank you for sharing so much with me during this podcast. We are coming towards the end of our time, and it's a question that we always pose to our guest as we close the podcast. I think we want everybody really to sort of understand as much as they can about the procurement sector, but also to shine a light on it and, to recognise, like so many sectors, there are issues around retention and recruitment, but really, to show the different opportunities there are, particularly for young people who may be considering their futures and their future careers. So you shared some of your story with us, which has been great to hear. And just to end on a positive note, it'd be lovely to hear about why now, after all these years, you are pleased that you are in a career in procurement.
What a question, eh? No pressure.
You can answer in whatever way you want.
Yeah, sure. I'm really pleased that I made the step. I felt really brave at the time, if I'm being honest, to take myself out of that engineering track to do something completely different when it wasn't working for me. And I guess that's a lesson in itself. You leave college, you leave university with that plan in mind, and it's always good to have a plan. Resilience comes from when that plan fails. What's the plan B? Because you've never had to think about it. You've never had to face that life-changing experience before. And I had to do that, and I was really nervous at the time. But I'm really pleased that I made the step and I haven't looked back. Because what does a procurement career give you? It gives you so many different opportunities to learn. And I know other departments can, but if I build on a few examples, when I was at Tesco, there was a dedicated team just buying citrus fruits. And they used to go to Brazil and parts of South America every day just to look at the supply chain of lemons and oranges. And I can't believe someone did that for a job. And I learned early on, actually, it's so important to companies like Tesco and Sainsbury's and others that how they manage their supply chain in that regard. And I quickly realised, Sean, that that's just lemons and oranges. There's companies out there that buy some of the ingredients that go into some of our favourite alcohols and whiskies. There's companies out there that buy part of the leather components that go into handbags and shoes. And by working in these different industries and markets and how businesses work, you get, building on my point before, you get to learn how the world works and how, I guess, external factors affect those companies in a different way. More generally, though, procurement will expose you to how businesses work. Things like contract law, the basics about how to read a contract, what to look for. You'll always learn about technology. Technology is everywhere now. There's procurement technology, there's a whole market for that. Sustainability, as we've touched on, risk, finance as well. So perhaps some of you are able to read financial statements, so your cash flow, balance sheet, profit and loss, at a basic level, just to understand what you need to when assessing risk. So I guess what I'm saying, Sean, is that there's a lot to learn, but the learning never stops, and that's what continues to excite me. It's one of the few professions in demand, I'd say, aside from things like computer science and AI, because they really are a function that's trying to drive value for money at a time where cost is critical for most companies.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a delight speaking with you. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast as our guest, and wishing you all the very best now with your career as you go forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That wraps up this episode of Powering Procurement. We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
Visit our website at atomis.co.uk or follow us on LinkedIn to continue the conversation.
Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen.
Thanks for joining us, and see you next time on Powering Procurement.